Welcome to the Property and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Atkinson.
I'm Matt Skehan.
We'll be fueling your financial future, one coffee and property insights at a time.
Helping you navigate the property market like a pro.
Hello, and what a pleasure it is to have your company on the Property and Coffee Podcast, where we are going to be fueling your financial future, one coffee and property insights at a time. I'm your host, Matt Atkinson, joined by my co-host, Matt Skehan, and today we have Cynthia Auch-Schwelk, a Melbourne-based property estate agent, joining us today to provide her expert insights into the market. Welcome, Cynthia.
Hello, Matt and Matt.
Thanks for coming on, Cynthia.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. We're going to just touch on what we're talking about today. First up, a bit of barbecue chats and news bites, where we're going to be looking at some government announcements where some high-density apartment buildings have been zoned and coming in potentially into Bayside. We are then going to be diving into a bit of, Cynthia, your business, understanding a bit more how that was set up and your focus areas. And then we're going to be wrapping up with some key insights to take away. So let's get right into it. So we've seen over the last couple of months a range of announcements from the Victorian government where they're looking to address one of the key items being housing supply or the housing supply crisis. One of the proposed items is around zoning in suburbs areas to make way for high density buildings, apartments for people to live in. This hasn't always landed well with residents, so we're going to unpack and understand a bit more around what that looks like. First up, we'll ask a simple question, which is, for the residents wanting to protect the neighborhood character, is this really a question about them protecting their way of life or lifestyle, or is it also a way for them to protect their property values? Maddie, I might go to you and just understand what your thoughts are on the matter.
I think that's a great question. It's probably a bit of both, but I think ultimately, the housing is the greatest source of wealth in the country, right? So I think it's obviously preserving that values, the reasons they bought into those areas. No one likes change as well, but obviously those character streets and the character homes, people are fearful because, again, not quite sure of exactly what's going to happen or is the high rise going to be next door or nearby, and is it going to change the area that I love as well? But obviously, no one wants to lose money on their house. Like, I've never met a client that wants to lose money on a property transaction as well. So I think there's definitely some fear out there because, change, no one likes change. It's scary. And I think there is that, fear of, is my house going to be worth less, or, is the area going to lose its soul or appeal as well? So I think there's a few factors at play there, Matty. So
fair points, and a highly emotive topic as well.
So another one there, when housing supply is critical, who holds the moral high ground in planning, the long-term resident or the state government, aiming for crisis relief? So I think it's a very topical one at the moment.
That's true. For me, I would say the state governments, in the sense that they've been elected and they are responsible for the entire population, and they've been given a mandate to run the state. And they need to make sure that they address these key items that are coming up. As we would all appreciate, based on your answer to the first question, it is an emotive topic, and residents do have an element of self-interest where you want to make sure you're protecting what's yours. You don't want to see that being eroded. But ultimately, it is the state government's responsibility, and you'd like to think that the community does factor in terms of to how they put forward their plans and what they move forward with.
I think it's also the next generation as well. We've all got families and children where they're going to live and where they're going to afford to live as well. So I think there's that, there's obviously what's been and gone, the quarter acre block and hills hoist things are changing. So that's definitely a bit scary and a bit just unknowns, right? So out there at the moment. So I think there's a lot of, just fear in general and change and that anxiety around what's going to be normal looking forward. So
that's true. And another point to make is it's all good and well having, your density increase from a living perspective, but there's also an argument put forward to say more people coming in, this is going to put a weight or potentially crush the local infrastructure. We think of transport lines, educational facilities, even power facilities. Do you think that's a valid argument to be put forward by local residents?
Mate, yeah, I think it is, Matty. Like, if you look at some of the greenfield areas, obviously they don't have a lot of those amenities and schools and infrastructure as well. So that's why often people, like very car dependent. But, there in these areas, there is that potential for it. But obviously, historically the government's been a bit slow to act on these sort of things as well. So that's where, if you just whack a lot more people on with less services, or even just getting childcare and some of those sort of things is really challenging as well. There is a valid concern as well. So you can't just put people, you need to have the service and the amenities and other factors to keep up that livability. So I think it's definitely a bit of that cohesion of real estate's changing in the market at the moment. So it'll be interesting space. So
I think this is a topic that we're going to see development more as to how that progresses and what ends up coming in. So we'll definitely be keeping up to date with that as major changes come in, whether that's in the next couple of months or years ahead. Just switching tacks a little bit, keeping with obviously the focus on housing supply, but let's have a look a bit more at the rental market, specifically focusing in on Melbourne.
Yeah, so one for you, Cynthia, given, we've all seen the news topics, the articles and videos in other states around the rental shortages and queues and people lining up. I think I recently saw one of my clients in Sydney with a ridiculous queue around for a 2-bedroom in the eastern suburbs. But on the ground, what's it like at the moment for you, sort of southeast suburbs focus? But how many applications, days on market? Like, is it as bad as some of those stories, or what's actually happening out there in the rental market at the moment?
Yeah, in the south eastern suburbs, probably within first to second open, everything will lease.
Mm-hmm.
Could be looking anywhere between, I guess, 10 to 20 people, but that all depends on literally the price bracket. So anywhere that's like 600 and under, most people can afford. So you're going to see more people there, where you're looking at $800 per week. Maybe we'll only get 3 or 4 people through the door. I was actually talking to an owner in the western suburbs the other day, and he was just asking me what it was like down here in the southeastern suburbs. And I said, things are going, if they're priced correctly, they're going straight. Nothing should be online for more than 14 days. Western suburbs, you're looking at 60. So
Wow,
there's
okay.
there's an oversupply in the western suburbs, where here there's more demand than supply. So that's why the days on market's a lot less.
It's pretty simple, isn't it? Supply and demand, and obviously good amenity, good schools, and there's a lot of those lifestyle reasons for that as well. So that's good insights, and good to hear what's happening on the ground there from someone like yourself. So thanks for sharing.
Okay.
Thank you. And let's get into our guest segments. We're going to focus a bit more on your business, understand a bit more in terms of how you've been set up, and share a bit more with our listeners around the property management space.
Yeah, so the most important question, your favourite coffee, and where can we find you drinking it in Melbourne, Cynthia?
My favourite coffee would actually be at home. Would you believe?
At home?
Marcus, my husband, who's the other part of the business, he loves coffee.
Yep.
And he buys some of the best coffee that is in cafes as well. And he makes me an almond latte every morning. I'm quite lucky.
He's a keeper. So good. It sounds that's nothing better than a freshly brewed coffee at home. So that's fantastic. So.
And also, you don't really have far to travel to get it in the mornings, which is good. Next up, let's start with your business foundation. It'd be good to understand a bit more on how you came about or got into the business, and really what sort of made you take the leap to hit the ground running.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in property management for 13 years. Before I started my business, I was working at a company in Hawthorn for 7 years, and I was looking after the department for maybe 4 or 5 years prior. So I guess I just reached as high as I was going to go in that company. So I decided it was either to take the next step, whether it was buy into another company or start my own thing. So I decided to take the leap. That's honestly the main reason. And I was working in Hawthorn that whole time, so I decided to bring boutique property management down to the southeastern suburbs, which there wasn't many here, and there still isn't many here.
Okay. And then, and how have you found it? As you've obviously made the move across, set up, and we know in the Mordialloc or Parkdale area. Imagine a lot of your clients focused in that sort of stretch from Frankston through to Brighton, if you will, across that. Is that a fair?
Yeah. To be honest, I pretty much take on properties everywhere. I try to avoid the Westgate, but
don't we all? Yeah.
But it's been good. It's been good. Yeah, I definitely could never go back. Yeah.
Cool. Well, this leads perfectly into your niche, Cynthia. So you focus on time-poor working professionals. So what is your specific service offering that enables you to truly help your landlords? So,
Well, property management's my bread and butter. So I guess most agencies are run by a sales division, where my difference is my main focus is property management. And honestly, I just treat every single property as if it is my own property. Yeah, and my owners get invited to all routine inspections, which is something that like lots of agents don't do. Yeah, and just I guess finding the right tenant as well is the most important thing as well. And you got two different types of owners. You got ones who want to be involved, and you got ones who say, "I don't want to know anything. Look after my house." So.
no, I think, from feedback with our mutual clients who've worked over the journey, they're always, wrapped and, so that care factor you take into it and you really said you treat it like your own, and that communication I think is the key, right, isn't it? So It's just that fear of the unknown or not hearing from a property manager or not the detail in those routines. I think that's definitely something that we've observed over the journey. So our clients have always been wrapped with Ember. So thanks.
Thank you.
Cynthia, I'd imagine you see a range of different properties where people want to use your services and they come to you, and I'd imagine there'll be some where there might be a bit of a renovation needed just to get them up to scratch. What do you see from a landlord's perspective, the biggest mistake that they make when they want to go ahead with a renovation, specifically around a property that's going to be essentially an investment property? It's going to be rented out.
Well, I would tell owners probably not to do a complete renovation. Like, you're not really going to see the return on investment. Where what tenants really want are little things. So, like, it needs to be freshly painted. Flooring is important, but I wouldn't tell someone to go spend $80,000 on renovating a kitchen and a bathroom per se. People want air conditioning, heating, just little things as well. So if you don't have air conditioning throughout the property, put fans in the bedroom. So it's just little things instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to renovate something that, you don't need to.
Fair, especially in Melbourne, right? In the heat of in the midst of summer, the heat really does sort of step up a bit. But also, you get mornings like this morning, and obviously midwinter where it can drop quite a bit. And you want to make sure that you're taken care of when these things come around.
So let's switch to the investor's perspective, Cynthia. So for the landlords out there who are currently shopping to get into the market, what's something advice you'd give them when they're looking at purchasing the next property to rent out? What's sort of a good piece of advice from yourself?
I would say location is the most important. To be honest, though, most properties around the southeastern suburbs is sought after. Buy somewhere where people want to live.
No, I think couldn't agree more. I think location, and amenity schools and demand's really important. You can't move the property, so I think that's really sage advice. So absolutely, that's what we do with our clients as well. So makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Cynthia, one thing you touched on earlier was that your service you offer to your clients is ultimately to make sure you completely manage those properties and take any of the headaches out of them looking after that investment. What do you put forward, or can you just help us understand a bit more around your tenant screening criteria that you go through to make sure that you're putting in great tenants into these properties, which ultimately should hopefully make your job a bit easier, but also give your clients some confidence around who they're renting out to?
Yeah. So with your their current rental history is the most important thing. Also, just look them up on Facebook, internet. That you would actually be surprised if you just type in people's name in Google. Sometimes what would come up. It's happened to me a few times. So just little things like that as well. But honestly, when people come through the door, you do get a gut feeling of how they're going to be. But yeah, you have more good tenants than not good tenants, really.
That's good to hear. I think sometimes, especially in the rental market, people are quick to highlight, negative stories, but also there is a number of people where they have investment properties, but also they're renting to other good people and just they want to go about living their lives without, creating hassle and just carrying on, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
So with today's rising costs of insurance and maintenance, like how do you advise clients to calculate the vacancy and maintenance budget? Do you have sort of, obviously the rising costs at the moment, but the old rules of thumb about a week's vacancy, sort of 2 weeks or whatever, is there any sort of rules of thumb that you give to your clients? Or,
Yeah. So when, let's just say you've just purchased from a property actually, and then a new tenant's moving in, I normally say probably within about three or 4 days, if you have, this is you, if you've...
Some early access?
Yes, you've organised early access. But let's just say a tenant's moving out and a new tenant's moving in. I always have about 5 days in between. And that's purely just so I can go in and do my inspection and then my new inspection for the incoming tenants. And then in regards to maintenance costs, honestly, I guess it really depends on the age of the house.
Yeah, how long's a piece of string, isn't it?
Exactly. If you've got a hot water system that's 30 years old, there's a chance it's going to need to be replaced in the next few years. 30
years, that's a good run. I think nothing's built to last that long anymore, right?
That's
so 30
true.
years, I replaced one of my investment property that was, I think, about, was no more than 15 years old. So, they don't last forever anymore. So.
Anymore they don't, but honestly, I do have some that are quite that old.
Yep. So Cynthia, as we know in property, this business is much about as people as property. So you must have some interesting stories over the journey. Is there anything you think good way to sort of finish today? Any funny sort of landlord stories or things of being in the game for 13 years or so? I'm sure you've got a few tales to tell.
I've got a few. I've got one though. She was one of my first clients when I started the business. She was only supposed to be. She came to me. They were planning to do a Australia trip for 1 year. And she's still with me 5 years later, her property. She's not come back home. That's how much she loves travelling. She's not coming back home. And then literally about 2 years ago, I had another couple come to me. They said it's another thing. They're about the exact same thing. They're about to travel around Australia. They're only going to be gone for a year. And we're about to enter their third term of lease. So, in other words... rent your house out and travel around Australia.
I was about to say.
It's a big country. It's a big country. So who knows where they are? So they're sort of stuck. Yeah. So that's it's good, not good for business anyway. So it keeps the rent roll ticking over.
Exactly.
So yeah. Okay, cool. Interesting.
And maybe switching tact a little bit, more on the business side of things. So if you could give your younger self a piece of advice in terms of getting into and starting your own business, what would that be if you were embarking on your entrepreneur journey that you now know?
I would probably say maybe not all business is good business. I would probably also tell myself, you definitely don't need to take on everything because you will be okay and you will still grow. I guess I'm very fortunate that I can pick who I work with as much as they can pick who they work with. But that's probably what I would tell my younger self.
Perfect.
That's some sage and fantastic words. I think as a business owners ourselves, I think that's some really good little nuggets there. So thanks again. But that's all we have time for today in today's Property and Coffee episode. And I just want to say thanks again, Cynthia, for coming on board. And really enjoyed working with you in the business over the years. And thanks again for sharing your insights. And audience will really appreciate hearing from you today. Thanks again.
Thank you.
If you would like to keep receiving property insights and golden nuggets from our guests, please do follow us and you'll get the latest episode released on a fortnightly basis.